There's a great committee, there's a great committee, Lord, a great committee in the promised land. Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk on, my children, don't you get weary. Just walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great committee in the promised land. Together, children, don't you get weary. Walk on, children, don't you get weary. Just walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great committee in the promised land. Gonna walk and never tire. 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 There's a great committee in the promised land. Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk on, my children, don't you get weary. Just walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great committee in the promised land. Gonna sing and never tire. 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 There's a great committee in the promised land. Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk on, my children, don't you get weary. Just walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great committee in the promised land. Gonna shout and never tire. 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 There's a great committee in the promised land. Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Sing on, my children, don't you get weary. Just shout together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great committee. There's a great committee. There's a great committee in the promised land.
Good evening. Welcome to the 2021 Virtual Great Lakes Bay Regional Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration. Hello, everyone. I'm Colette Stinger, news anchor for WNEM TV5. I am so happy to serve as your mistress of ceremonies for this special occasion. Our theme this year is Working Together, Sharing a Dream. This annual Dr. King holiday affords all of us the opportunity to reflect upon the past while seeking hope, determination, and an opportunity to act upon the promise of the future. This evening, the committee has planned a very special program in honor of Dr. King's birthday. We know that you will truly enjoy the talent and commitment of our students and our speaker, Van Jones, who will make this celebration one that will truly be remembered. At this time, I would love to introduce Dr. Donald Vachon. Dr. Vachon has served as president of Saginaw Valley State University for the past 5 years, and he will deliver his welcoming remarks. Hello, Dr. Vachon.
Good evening. As always, it's a pleasure to participate in and welcome you to the annual Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. On behalf of my colleagues at Saginaw Valley State University and with our community partners, I am looking forward to tonight's discussion with this year's keynote speaker, best-selling author and CNN contributor, Mr. Van Jones. As we are less than 48 hours from the presidential inauguration, I look forward to hearing his insights. At the beginning of this new year, we as individuals and as a community are eager to turn the page and look forward to the prospect of brighter days ahead. In the past year, and even very recently, we have witnessed and experienced challenges and events that have hurt many people deeply. We have much work to do to achieve Dr. King's dream of unity. At the same time, these challenges have not diminished what we have been able to accomplish by supporting one another. In fact, this past year has shown us ways in which we can support one another better. Dr. King's legacy is one of steadfast advocacy for others, and especially for those who have seen justice denied. He remains a model of courage and service to the advancement of our communities. A current pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church just won election to the United States Senate. That too is now part of Dr. King's legacy. The opportunity to remember Dr. King and his life's work through this celebration reminds us of this legacy, and that as people, we are more similar than we are different. We share many common goals and dreams, and when we work to assure equity for all, everyone benefits. I am proud of the work we have done at Saginaw Valley State University to advance equity and inclusion. It is work we are committed to continue doing. We see this as our responsibility as a regional public university, both now and well into the future. In closing, I'd like to thank Dr. Mamie Thorns and her team in the Office of Diversity Programs for facilitating tonight's discussion, as well as the many sponsors and community partners who have supported this event. Thank you once again, and enjoy tonight's Great Lakes Bay Regional Martin Luther King Jr. celebration.
Thank you, Dr. Bond, for welcoming our audience to this event, and we definitely appreciate your ongoing commitment to keeping Dr. King's dream alive. Now we have a very special welcome from our United States Senator, Debbie Stabenow.
It's an honor to join with you as you celebrate the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And thanks to all of the organizers who put on such an inspiring event year after year. Hopefully next year we'll be able to be together in person again. As we all know, this past year has been an extremely difficult one, especially for communities of color. We've seen huge and systematic racial disparities in the health and economic impacts of COVID-19. We've mourned Black and brown lives who've been lost to police violence. And we've now witnessed domestic terrorism inspired and encouraged by our current president and led by white supremacists and other radical elements that have challenged the heart of our democracy. We all know that had the mobs at the US Capitol been Black, the outcome would have been very different. All of these events have been a harsh reminder of the deep damage caused by racial inequality. They reminded us that we still have a long way to go before we end systemic racism and achieve Dr. King's dream. But even in the most difficult of circumstances, Dr. King taught us that hope still lives. That hope is what led to a record-setting turnout in the November election. That hope is what inspired the people of Georgia to organize and turn out and elect their first Black senator and a new majority in the United States Senate. And that hope causes so many of us to be excited about our new President, Joe Biden, and our new Vice President, Kamala Harris. And we're confident that they will renew Dr. King's fight for equality. It's fitting that the day we honor Dr. King is also a national day of service called by our new president and vice president. Because the work of justice can't wait. It needs to happen every day in our communities, in our schools, on our sidewalks, in our churches, in our synagogues, in our mosques. As Dr. King said, everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. At this historic time, let us recommit to keep Dr. King's legacy alive as we continue to work together for equality and justice.
Thank you for those inspiring words, Debbie Stabenow, U.S. Senator. At this time, I would like to introduce the leaders of the 3 community foundations in our Great Lakes Bay region who will present the 2021 MLK Scholarship recipients. We're so excited about this. Please welcome Sharon Mortensen, President and CEO of the Midland Area Community Foundation, Diane Fong, CEO of the Bay Area Community Foundation, and Renee Johnston, President and CEO of the Saginaw Community Foundation. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Mortensen. I'm here tonight representing Midland Area Community Foundation. Working together with me on this event and these scholarships are my colleagues, Renee Johnston from the Saginaw Community Foundation and Diane Fong from the Bay Area Community Foundation. The Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Regional Scholarship was created in 2005 as a collaboration of the local chapters of the NAACP, the Bay, Midland, and Saginaw Chambers of Commerce, and the community foundations in Bay, Saginaw, and Midland counties. The goal of the scholarship was to expand it from separate committees to more of a regional concept in our celebration together. In 2010, we partnered with Saginaw Valley State University and Delta College. We're also grateful for the continued support of the Dow Company, TCF Bank, and SC Johnson for helping to underwrite the $1,000 scholarships that each student will be awarded tonight. A selection committee composed of representatives from Midland, Saginaw, and Bay communities had an exceptionally difficult time selecting the MLK Scholarship recipients that you will meet in a few moments. The selection process was not an easy one due to the quantity. There were nearly 3 applicants for every available scholarship and the quality of the students who applied. One criterion for selection was how each student engaged in activities and efforts to make Dr. King's dream of equality a reality, and how they will keep Dr. King's dream alive in the future. Tonight, there are 15 recipients with anywhere from 4 to 6 students from each county. They represent 12 high schools from across the region. Their activities are many, and they range from the Great Lakes Bay Regional Youth Leadership Program, the Spirit Council to provide information and feedback related to racial diversity within the school and how it can change the community, volunteering at soup kitchens and the rescue mission, participating in 1 Week, 1 Street, repairing homes and providing assistance to the community, the Multicultural Minds Club, mentoring for Big Brothers Big Sisters, delivering meals to kids not receiving them during school closures due to COVID-19, the Just for Kids Youth Board, packing shoeboxes with school supplies and sending to third world countries, Student Council, National Honor Society, Youth NAACP, mission trips, community service, and much more. You may enjoy this excerpt from one of the essays. The only real way that I could personally combat ignorance was to share the experiences of someone who was denied the privilege that they take for granted, speaking out without being ashamed of the fact that my life was and always will be different from my friends and peers, learning about Martin Luther King Jr., witnessing the racism in the media and my own life, and now living through the Black Lives Matter movement has helped me to finally understand that pivotal role that I play and making Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream come true. I now know that I want activism to play a major role in my life, and without Martin Luther King Jr.'s impact on my story, I may never realize that I could genuinely have an influence on future generations. The future goals of this group of young people include attending college, obviously, majoring in everything from engineering to journalism. 13 recipients plan to attend college in Michigan, and 2 are pursuing their educational studies beyond Michigan's borders. The young people you will meet are fantastic role models for their peers, younger students who need mentors, and for many adults in our communities. I also need to recognize that these young people have lived through unprecedented and challenging times. They have continued to actively take positive action in the face of circumstances that are unlike any in any of our lifetimes. Before we recognize these students, we must take a moment to acknowledge their parents, families, and mentors for guiding our recipients to this point in their lives. Thank you to these individuals for being an inspiration to our student scholars. Job well done. Following the announcement of each student's name, we will view a video of the scholarship recipients as they present excerpts from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s The American Dream speech given at Ebenezer Baptist Church on July 4th, 1965. It is a pleasure to recognize the 2021 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. scholarship recipients individually. Emma Adelman from Novell Catholic Central High School plans to attend the University of Minnesota, majoring in music therapy. Mayada Al-Ahmed from H.H. Dow High School plans to attend the University of Michigan and major in pre-medicine studies, biomolecular science. Catherine Alt from H.H. Dow High School plans to attend Purdue University, majoring in chemical engineering. Elena Curry from Saginaw Arts and Sciences Academy plans to attend Ferris State University, majoring in pharmacy. Rita Gorsuch from Bullitt Creek High School plans to attend the University of Michigan, majoring in zoology. Cassandra Grotulushin from Bay City Central High School plans to attend Michigan State University studying astronomy. Neasia Hopkins from Saginaw High School plans to attend the College of Creative Studies, majoring in animation. Elise Ngala from H.H. Dow High School plans to attend the University of Michigan, majoring in biology. Marquivas Jackson from Saginaw High School plans to attend Wayne State University, majoring in psychology. Destiny Manley from Bridgeport High School plans to attend Saginaw Valley State University, majoring in pre-physical therapy. Emma Massey from Midland High School plans to attend the University of Michigan, majoring in musical theater. Hannah Niederquil from Freeland High School plans to attend Saginaw Valley State University, majoring in elementary education. William Osdick from John Glenn High School plans to attend Central Michigan University, and his major is currently undecided. Taylor Parker from Bay City Western High School is making a final decision on college or university to attend. Taylor is currently undecided on a major. J.C. Palmaville from Pinconning Area High School plans to attend Wayne State University, majoring in journalism. Congratulations to all of our Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. scholarship recipients.
That That was so exciting. Congratulations, our future leaders. I am so excited. That was so inspirational. Thank you. And congratulations to each scholarship recipient. Now, Dr. Ken Jolly, professor of history at Saginaw Valley State University, will now introduce the student video presentation.
Good evening. As we honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. tonight, we celebrate and reflect upon his life and legacy through his own words, shared by our scholarship recipients. This year's selection is The American Dream, a sermon Dr. King delivered at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia, July 4th, 1965.
I will try to preach a sermon in the spirit of the founding fathers of our nation and in the spirit of the Declaration of Independence. And so this morning, I would like to preach about the American dream. It wouldn't take us long to discover the substance of that dream. It is found in those majestic words of the Declaration of Independence, words lifted to cosmic proportions. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by God, Creator, with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is a dream. It is a great dream.
The first thing we notice in this dream is an amazing universalism. Then that dream goes on to say another thing that ultimately distinguishes our nation and our form of government from any totalitarian system in the world. It says that each of us has certain basic rights that are neither derived from nor conferred by the state. Now, ever since the founding fathers of our nation dreamed up this dream in all of its magnificence, America has been tragically divided against herself. On one hand, we have proudly professed the great principles of democracy, but on the other hand, we have sadly practiced the very opposite of those principles.
But now, more than ever before, America is challenged to realize its dream, for the shape of the world today does not permit our nation the luxury of an anemic democracy. I would like to deal with some of the challenges that we face today in our nation as a result of the American dream. First, I want to reiterate the fact that we are challenged more than ever before to respect the dignity and the worth of all human personality.
This is why we must fight segregation with all of our unviolent might. Segregation is not only inconvenient, that isn't what makes it wrong. Segregation is not only sociologically untenable, that isn't what makes it wrong. Segregation is not only politically and economically unsound, that isn't what makes it wrong. Ultimately, segregation is morally wrong and sinful. To use the words of a great Jewish philosopher, Martin Buber, it is wrong because it substitutes the I-it relationship for the I-thou relationship and relegates persons to the status of things.
Now that doesn't only apply on the race issue. It applies on the class question. You know, sometimes a class system can be as vicious and evil as a system based on racial injustice. This is why we must join the war against poverty and believe in the dignity of all work. What makes a job menial? I'm tired of this stuff about menial labor. What makes it menial is that we don't pay folk anything. Give somebody a job and pay them some money so they can live and educate their children and buy a home and have the basic necessities of life. And no matter what the job is, it takes on dignity.
Now there's another thing that we must never forget. If we are going to make the American dream a reality, we are challenged to work in an action program to get rid of the last vestiges of segregation and discrimination. History is the long story of the fact that privileged groups seldom give up their privileges without strong resistance, and they seldom do it voluntarily.
And so if the American dream is to be a reality, we must work to make it a reality and realize the urgency of the moment. And we must say, now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to make the United States a better nation.
And I would like to say to you this morning what I've tried to say all over this nation, what I believe firmly, that in seeking to make the dream a reality, we must use and adopt a proper method. I'm more convinced than ever before that nonviolence is the way. I'm more convinced than ever before that violence is impractical as well as immoral. We need not hate. We need not use violence. We can stand up before our most violent opponent and say, we will meet your physical force with soul force.
Oh yes, love is the way. Love is the only absolute. More and more I see this. I've seen too much hate to want to hate myself. Hate is too great a burden to bear. I've seen it on the faces of too many sheriffs of the South. I've seen hate. In the faces and even the walk of too many Klansmen of the South, I've seen hate. Hate distorts the personality. Hate does something to the soul that causes one to lose his objectivity. The man who hates can't think straight. The man who hates can't reason right. The man who hates can't see right. The man who hates can't walk right.
And I know now that Jesus is right, that love is the way. And this is why John said, God is love, so that he who hates does not know God, but he who loves at that moment has the key that opens the door to the meaning of ultimate reality. So this morning, there is so much that we have to offer to the world. We have a great dream. It started way back in 1776, and God grant that America will be true to her dream.
About 2 years ago now, I stood with many of you who stood there in person, and all of you who were there in spirit before the Lincoln Monument in Washington. As I came to the end of my speech there, I tried to tell the nation about a dream I had. I must confess to you this morning that since that sweltering August afternoon in 1963, my dream has often turned into a nightmare. I've seen it shattered.
I saw it shattered one night on Highway 80 in Alabama when Mrs. Viola Louisa was shot down. I had a nightmare and saw my dream shattered one night in Marion, Alabama when Jimmy Lee Jackson was shot down. I saw my dream shattered one night in Selma when Pastor Reed was clubbed to the ground by vicious racists and later died.
I've seen my dreams shattered as I walked the streets of Chicago and seen Negroes, young men and women, with a sense of utter hopelessness because they can't find any jobs. And they see life as a long and desolate corridor with no exit signs. And not only Negroes at this point. I've seen my dreams shattered because I've been through Appalachia and I've seen my white brothers along with Negroes living in poverty. And I'm concerned about white poverty as much as I'm concerned about Negro poverty.
So yes, the dream has been shattered, and I have had my nightmarish experiences. But I tell you this morning once more that I haven't lost the faith. I have a dream that one day all of God's children will have food and clothing and material well-being for their bodies, culture and education for their minds, and freedom for their spirits. I still have a dream this morning. One day all of God's Black children will be respected like his white children. I still have a dream this morning that one day the lion and the lamb will lie down together, and every man will sit under his own vine and fig tree, and none shall be afraid.
I still have a dream this morning that one day all people will recognize that out of one blood, God made all men to dwell upon the face of the earth. I still have a dream this morning that every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill be made low. The rough places made plain, and the crooked places straight. The glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. I still have a dream this morning that truth will reign supreme, and all of God's children will respect the dignity and worth of human personality. And when this day comes, the morning stars will sing together, and the children of God will shout for joy.
That was powerful. Congratulations again, scholarship winners. Well, it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Jean Goodnow, president of the Delta College, who will present the Martin Luther King Jr. Drum Major Award. This is so exciting.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Jean Goodnow, president of Delta College. I'm pleased to present a special award to 3 outstanding individuals tonight. The Martin Luther King Jr. Drum Major for Service Award is presented to individuals who are unsung heroes that perform extraordinary or ordinary acts of service to their communities, but seldom receive recognition. Their work exemplifies Dr. King's values and beliefs in being what he calls a drum major for justice, peace, and righteousness. Each year, an MLK Drum Major Award winner from Bay, Midland, and Saginaw counties is recognized. Okay, here we go. The first recipient of a Drum Major for Service Award is Charles Bruner from Bay County. Mr. Bruner taught in Bay City schools for over 30 years and was a founding member of the Northwest Citizens District Council, which works in an advisory capacity to the staff and city commission. He has been involved in many community events such as park cleanups, design, and funding for improvements in the area, and involvement with the first ever Paint and Pride project. Mr. Bruner is a Delta College graduate. He served as city commissioner and then mayor of Bay City, and he established an annual citywide cleanup project. He's also a founding member of the Mayor's Automotive Coalition. Mr. Bruner served as city commissioner and then mayor of Bay City. He joined mayors from across the country in Washington, D.C. to advocate for the auto industry many years ago, which led to saving the local GM plant and helping to save the entire auto industry in this area. Mr. Bruner was state representative for 6 years and worked hard to assist constituents with state bureaucratic problems. He sponsored and wrote legislation to support jobs and economic development in his district and the state of Michigan. Retired and still giving back to his community, we recognize Mr. Bruner with the Drum Major Award for Bay City. Thank you for your work and congratulations. Our second award winner is Diane Brown Wilhelm from Midland County. She's a public servant, having served on the Midland City Council and Planning Commission for 15 years as the first African American elected to City Council. She serves as the council's legislative director and represents the city on the Michigan Municipal League's Board of Trustees. Ms. Brown Wilhelm currently leads the We Hear You initiative, a collaborative community effort to identify strengths that address inequity and disparity and bring about lasting change for our current and future generations. She also works with Midland's Shelter House, Community Family Ministries, and the League of Women Voters. Ms. Brown Wilhelm values hard work and is a leader in strategic programming for Accenture, a leading global professional services company. She is employee engagement lead, project people advocate, and Midwest technology development captain, all roles that allow her to give back and support her community. Ms. Brown Wilhelm leads by example and believes it's the open doors you walk through that allow you to use your gifts to facilitate change in your community and the lives of others. We are pleased to recognize Diane Brown Wilhelm with the Drum Major Award for Midland County. Congratulations. Mrs. Frances Carter is recognized posthumously as the 2021 Drum Major for Saginaw County. Mrs. Carter was the first African-American principal in the Saginaw Public School District. She led Potter Elementary School and later Stone Elementary School and retired in 1991 after almost 40 years of service. Mrs. Carter was a humanitarian who spent her life giving back to her community. She had impeccable organization skills and an ability to plan and complete activities with excellence, culture, and class. She loyally served her church, Bethel AME, for over 80 years. Just some of her many positions were trustee, founding member of the board of directors for the Bethel Federal Credit Union, charter member for the Nurses Guild, and director of Christian education. Mrs. Carter was a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority for over 71 years and was a charter member of the Eta Upsilon Omega chapter in Saginaw, where she later served as president. She was a servant to Saginaw's children, a role model for area women, and a tireless worker in her service to God. Let's give a round of applause from home for each recipient of a much-deserved Drum Major for Service Award. Congratulations.
Yes, a big round of applause. That was amazing. Yes, trailblazers right in our community. Thank you, Dr. Goodnow. And congratulations to our 3 Martin Luther King Jr. Drum Major Award recipients for your hard work and dedicated service to our community. Well, I am so pleased to introduce this evening's moderator. Danelle White is the Chief Diversity Officer and Director of Strategic Partnerships for TCF National Bank. He previously served in the same role at Chemical Bank since June of 2018. Prior to joining Chemical Bank, Mr. White served as Executive Director of the Detroit branch of the NAACP, where he helped lead the largest and also one of the NAACP's oldest and most storied branches. Mr. White.
Colette, thank you for keeping the energy going this evening as we zoom our way through life. I know that's not an easy task, but so much energy in this celebration, and I'm so happy to be a part of tonight's celebration. To tonight's honorees, including our 2021 MLK Scholarship awardees, you are the dream that the dreamer dreamed. Continue to be steadfast and unmovable on your journey. Congratulations to each of you. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening, Van Jones. Van Jones is president and founder of the nonprofit Dream Corps, a justice incubator that houses the following initiatives: Cut 50, Yes We Code, Green for All, and Love Army, all with the overarching goal to create innovative solutions that close prison doors and open doors of opportunity. Van has also led a number of other social and environmental justice enterprises, including the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights and Color of Change. A Yale-educated attorney, Van has written 3 New York Times bestsellers: The Green Collar Economy, The Definitive Book on Green Jobs, Rebuild the Dream, A Roadmap for Progressives, and most recently, Beyond the Messy Truth, How We Came Apart, How We Come Together. In 2009, Van worked as the Green Jobs Advisor to the Obama White House. There he helped run the interagency process that oversaw $80 billion in green energy recovery spending. He has earned many honors, including the World Economic Forum's Young Global Leader designation, Rolling Stone's 12 Leaders Who Get Things Done, Fast Company's 12 Most Creative Minds on Earth, a Webby Special Achievement Award, and Time's 100 Most Influential People in the World. He is a correspondent for CNN and a regular guest on political talk shows. A purveyor of truth, a voice for the voiceless, and a drum major for justice, a true keeper of the dream, but more importantly, a servant leader and laborer in the vineyards. It's my distinct pleasure and task, which brings me great honor, to welcome Van Jones. Van.
Hey, Brother White, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I hope I can be heard. I just want to say a few things. First of all, obviously, this past year with its many challenges has felt like an extraordinary set of challenges for this new generation that's coming up. But I want to say that, no pressure, no diamonds. No pressure, no diamonds. You're being equipped for a world of change and challenge in a way that maybe no generation has been equipped, except for perhaps Dr. King's generation. Dr. King, we like to think of as this great hero that was beloved by everybody. He's got a monument now. He's got a day named after him now. Don't forget that Dr. King went to jail many times. He had many sleepless nights. He was stabbed. He was low in the polls. If he had been on Twitter, he would have trended many times in a negative way. And yet, because of all that he went through, a vision was forged in him that we are still trying to carry out. And your generation, this new generation is now taking the stage, is facing its own set of challenges. It's not just this public health crisis. There are 3 converging challenges that you are going to have to face and deal with. And on the other side of dealing with them, I believe we can have an America that's much closer to Dr. King's dream. Even despite all the stuff that's going on, I'm confident of that. What are your 3 big challenges? And what can you do about them? Number 1, you do have a flattening of wages all across, not just the United States, throughout the Western world. Middle-class folks, working-class folks, regular old people used to be able to work hard and get ahead. It's getting harder and harder to do that. Whenever you have economic frustration, economic anxiety, people start becoming susceptible to conspiracy theories. They become susceptible to being pulled into scapegoating movements and say, well, it's that group's fault. It's that group's fault. And so you're going to have to deal with this question of the flatlining of wages and the growing income and wealth inequality. You can deal with that, but that's a challenge. Number two, this challenge of demographic diversity. Now, all throughout the Western world, you've always had non-white people. That's not new. The Mongols, we call them Asians now. They were called Mongols back in the day. The Moors, we call them North Africans now, but they were called Moors. So even when you're studying European history, you're hearing all about non-white people. But what's different today is this insistence throughout the Western world that those of us who are people of color be treated as absolutely equal to, in every way, people who are white. This Dr. King insistence of equal votes and equal souls has now gone all around the world. And so it's not just that European countries and North American countries have to absorb more non-white citizens. We want that to happen on an equal basis. That creates a shock. That creates challenges. That creates cultural anxiety and can lay the groundwork for bigotry and intolerance to flare up. And then thirdly, we're having this trust and truth crisis. What's the truth? You have partisan media that makes money dividing people based on, well, if you're a Democrat, watch this show. If you're a Republican, listen to this network. Now we're not even getting the same facts anymore. And you have these devices that we all put our, up to our noses every day. And those algorithms are designed not to give you information, but to give you endorphins, to give your brain a little tickle. And when your brain gets that little tickle, you want to stay on that app. Well, what gives your brain a little tickle? Well, you being reinforced in what you already believe. And so they're making money, they're multiplying their dollars by dividing the people with partisan media and social media. You take those three things together, economic anxiety, cultural transformation, and technological transformation, you're going to have, and you shake them up in the same bottle, you're going to have challenges. The question is, how do you turn these breakdowns into breakthroughs? How do you take all these forces that are pulling us apart, and rather than helping people turn on each other, help people turn to each other so we can have a even greater society for everybody going forward? That is your challenge. That is your opportunity. That is the destiny to which you are called as a generation. And I want to tell you, it can be done. But the only way to get there is to use the principles that Dr. King taught, the principles that Dr. King laid down. I call Dr. King the final founder of the U.S. As a multiracial, multi-faith democracy that includes everybody, men, women, no matter what your sexuality, age, ability level. That wasn't founded in 1776. The process for that was started in 1776, but it really wasn't even completed in law until the mid-1960s, thanks to the great leadership of Dr. King, Ella Jo Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, Bayard Rustin, and others. What did Dr. King bequeath us that gives us the ability to meet these challenges and still be able to have a great country? First of all, Dr. King is credited with being such a great orator and such a great speaker. We sometimes forget that he was just as powerful a listener as a speaker. The 21st century skill set is about the ability to deeply listen, not just the ability to powerfully speak. Of course, we all have to be able to powerfully speak. I hope I'm speaking powerfully to you right now. But Dr. King, the most powerful pictures of him, in my view, are when you see a Dr. King in Appalachia, as was mentioned before, listening to poor white folks. You see Dr. King in Chicago when he moved his family into the so-called slums of Chicago, sitting on couches, listening to people who were growing up poor in the urban environment and challenges, listening so that he could then build bridges. He wasn't just somebody who gave a speech in 1963. He was somebody in 1968 who was bringing whites and blacks and Mexicans and so many groups together for the Poor People's Campaign. That came out of his ability to listen. So we got to not just try to speak like Dr. King, which is impossible, but try to listen like Dr. King, which is necessary. Number two, we are all taught to compete. We're all taught to get out there and achieve and accomplish. Very, very important. That's why you get an education. But you've got to balance that off. And Dr. King was quite accomplished. Dr. King had a PhD at a very young age, and obviously wound up winning the Nobel Prize, et cetera. But it was not just his ability to compete and achieve that was balanced by his capacity for empathy. Not just me, myself, and I dominating and winning. Certainly you want to have that drum major instinct as we talked about, but you also got to be able to have empathy for others. I don't care who you are. I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care how much money you have. You wake up every morning in a world where you have 1 billion Chinese folk, 1 billion Indians, 1 billion Africans, and every kind of American with every hyphen you can imagine that you are going to have to deal with. And whether you want to cooperate or compete, you've got to deal with massive global diversity. And you can only deal with that if you know how to listen like Dr. King and have empathy like Dr. King to understand where other people are coming from. And then the last thing about Dr. King, which does not get talked about enough, does not get promoted enough, is his ability to imagine a future that is better for everyone. Dr. King knew that common pain could lead to common purpose. He saw, as was mentioned earlier, he saw white folks in Appalachia. He saw Mexicans in border towns. He saw Native Americans. He saw African Americans. He saw so many people, sharecroppers and others, who had common pain in terms of a lack of opportunity, a lack of jobs, lack of justice, while money was being wasted on wars and other things that didn't make sense. And he began to imagine with his Poor People's Campaign a better future for everybody. You have the opportunity to find common ground even today. Oh, well, no way, this group is against this group, and this group did this, and they're accused. No. Even right now, addiction is a scourge on Black, white, and brown communities. It hits rich folks and poor folks. Common pain should give us common purpose to decriminalize sending people who are addicted to prison and instead start sending them to rehab to help people. Even today, right now, mental health, depression, suicide is hitting all communities. That is common pain. It should give us some common ground and some common purpose. You think about the need for, as I've worked on, criminal justice reform. So much money, $80 billion a year being used to fund and fuel prisons everywhere when we don't have enough schools, don't have enough hospitals. That hurts Black, white, rich, poor, brown, and otherwise. That, again, the common pain of having a big bloated criminal justice system gobbling up people's rights and wasting money, that gives you an opportunity while still respecting law enforcement and respecting the need for public safety to use those dollars in a more intelligent way. I can go down the line. Broadband for all. You've seen the need from low-income white communities to low-income Black communities and back and forth again, the need for broadband for everybody to be able to get online and listen to this lecture right here. Everybody can't do that. Can you imagine not being able to watch a YouTube video, let alone take a course online, or to navigate, to migrate your business away from only in person to also being able to have a digital business? These are the questions of life and death now. The ability to have broadband access for all. Again, common pain when you don't have it should lead to common purpose. There are so many solutions that could make America better, that could help all of our communities, and you need your generation to step up. It's easy to divide. The algorithms help you to divide with social media. Partisan media helps you to divide. Economic scarcity and fear helps you to divide. The fact we have all these different groups in this country helps you to divide. But it takes leadership, it takes empathy, it takes the ability to listen, it takes a bold imagination to bring people together. And in your generation, if you play your cards right, because you've all gone through the same hell with this virus, you've all gone through the same hell of watching the political class fight like cats and dogs, you can say enough. Let the pressure that you've been under turn you into diamonds and turn this breakdown into a breakthrough. Thank you very much.
Van, thank you for that. Truly inspiring. You hit a couple nuggets on the head, and just for the record, Van, we did not coordinate turtlenecks for today. So I just want to set the record straight out there for everybody. But I like your style.
It's a new
I
style.
like your style.
Thank you, sir.
Van, you hit on a couple points, Van. As we look at January 6th, here we are celebrating Dr. King's birthday and his legacy on January the 18th. And 48 hours away from an inauguration where hopefully we can turn the page. A stark contrast to Dr. King's teaching of peace, reconciliation, and a personification of nonviolent demonstration. As we brace ourselves with capitals boarded up across this country, death threats continuing, what is your take in the state of the beloved community that Dr. King saw? How do we emerge from this moment?
Well, look, the reality is that you can go Dr. King's way in either party. And we have an opportunity to use our differences constructively. See, Dr. King believed in, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. I have my opinion, you have your opinion, but by debating honorably and civilly, we might come up with a better solution. We get to a synthesis that's better than my idea or your idea. That's the genius of democracy, is that when you debate civilly and honestly and you respect each other, you listen, you might come up with a better idea for both sides. But if you go the other direction and try to be in this post-truth politics where you just pick whatever you believe and no facts make a difference and you just stay in your own little bubble, that's when you can wind up on the pathway to a civil war. And it can happen in any country. Syria was a middle-class, thriving country 10 years ago. Rwanda was stable and climbing 20 years ago, and you see what happens there. And so, Dr. King said we have two choices: nonviolence or non-existence. He was right then, and he's right now. As a country, we can resolve these things non-violently, based on fair argument, based on respect for each other, based on the idea of equal votes and equal souls, or we can go down the stairway into a nightmare that nobody should have to live through. And so, but here's a great thing. Every day you get to wake up, that day is not written. This week is not written. This month is not written. This year is not written. This decade is not written. It will be written by the people under the sound of my voice. And I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, it's the least of my concerns. The question is, are you a decent, if you're going to be a Republican, then be a great Republican. Be the party of Lincoln, not the party of Steve Bannon. If you're a Democrat, be a great Democrat. Okay, be the party of a Shirley Chisholm, and not somebody who just wants to cancel everybody and be upset with no answers. Be the greatest expression of whatever you're going to be, and then we'll be all right.
Van, we have a few hundred questions that have come in from faculty and students, and of course we won't get to them all, but I want to try to tie some of the questions as we go along to a few unifying themes here. One of the questions that came in is, and you've been on the front lines of this, I've had the pleasures, I'm sure we all have, of watching you debate is probably not an accurate word, but truth tell against your colleagues and peers. I won't name any names there. But given recent events at the US Capitol, the double standard in treatment of rioters versus those peaceful BLM protesters and others attempting to showcase the violence inflicted on Black and Brown people because of white supremacy, has this given you any new ideas for any nonprofits or work going forward towards a more just society and how we view each other?
Well, two things. One is, it's very obvious that the double standard. It's inconceivable that an African-American group of 10,000 people could go into the seat of government in the middle of a joint session of Congress, tear up the place, kill a police officer, and then everybody go home and eat a pizza or a donut. That's just insane. And so, but I think that what it underscores is this idea that some people feel that they're entitled to win even when they lose. And then some of us feel like we can't, we don't even when we win, we still wind up losing. But what I would say about it is, and I apologize for the siren outside. I'm here in New York City, so hopefully, that's just Zoom world. Hopefully it's not too loud to you. But what I would say is simply this. I already have a couple of not-for-profit organizations I'm proud of, the Reform Alliance, which I started with Jay-Z and Meat Mill, working on criminal justice, the Dream Corps in Oakland, California, Ella Baker Center for Human Rights in Oakland, California, colorofchange.org. My life is a testament to the fact that you can do well while doing good. I'm very proud to be on CNN and to be a best-selling author, but I'm most proud of the work I've done helping some of the not-for-profit organizations or organize real people for real change. And whatever you do in life, it's important to do well. You want to be able to get good grades and get a great job or start a great company and have a good salary, take care of your family. But you're always going to ultimately be judged by what you did for others, especially the least of these. And it just made me that much more determined to help the least of these.
Thanks, Van. Then you remember the bracelets we used to wear back in the day, WWJD. I don't know if you ever saw those or wore those, but this is my take on the WWJD. This is WWKD. What would King do? You mentioned a few of the unifying themes of King's teachings and some things that could unify us today: the flattening of wages, diversity, truth-telling, and others. King had described when he talked about where do we go from here, chaos or community, the three evils. So I'm going to read three quotes, and I'd love to hear your take on some concrete kind of paths forward or legislations or policies or actions that we all can get behind to kind of move forward. So the first up is poverty. And these are the words of Dr. King. There's nothing new about poverty. What is new, how we now have the resources to get rid of it. Now, mind you, this is 1967. We now have the resources to get rid of it. The time has come for an all-out world war against poverty. The well-off and the secure have too often become indifferent and oblivious to the poverty and deprivation in their midst. Ultimately, a great nation is a compassionate nation. No individual or nation can be great if it does not have the concern for the least of thee. End quote.
Well, listen, I mean, nobody can say it better than Dr. King. Like you said, what would Jesus do? What would Dr. King do? King was a follower of Jesus, so those two things line up. I won't even add anything to that. We could be an opportunity nation. We have the technology, we have the finance, we have the genius. It's just a question of do we want to use these things in our hands right now as toys or as tools? I have more computing power in the palm of my hand right now, and so do you, than the US government had when it put a man on the moon. I say man because it was a man. The US government had less computing power to put a man on the moon than you have in your back pocket every day. Are we going to use these things as toys or as tools? That's the only question. Anything you want to learn, you can literally learn sitting here. If you have the right search terms, you can learn anything that you want to. And so, but we could be an opportunity nation, and we've got to focus on that. We're wasting too much genius. We got too many people in prison. And I went to Yale Law School, and I can tell you, the kids at Yale did a lot more drugs than I ever saw in a housing project. But those kids, if they got in trouble, they went to rehab and got jobs. Our kids from the housing project would make a small mistake and get a 10-year prison sentence. And so we're wasting a ton of genius. We got to change that. It's not just good when you stop locking people up for nothing. It's not just good for that person, it's good for society, because those people can be out here creating jobs for others.
Thanks, Van. The second triple evil he made reference to was racism. Words of Dr. King, quote, "Racism is a philosophy based on a contempt for life. It is the arrogant assertion that one race is the center of value and object of devotion, before which other races must kneel in submission." These words are, as you think about current events, it's so much packed into these words. I'll continue. It is the absurd dogma that one race is responsible for all of the progress of history and alone can assure the progress of the future. Racism is total estrangement. It separates not only bodies, but minds and spirits. Inevitably, it descends to inflicting spiritual and physical homicide upon the outgroup, end quote.
Look, I mean, Dr. King, the reason that you call him a prophet, you know, he had such a prophetic vision. I mean, those words, I mean, and the crazy thing is, if you look at those folks who tore up the Capitol and killed that police officer, it's hard for me to understand who they think they're supreme to. You talk about white supremacy. Who are you supreme over? I mean, this is the best thing you can come up with to make America better? Go tear up the Capitol and kill people on TV and post it on your Instagram and post it on Facebook, and then you're surprised when you're arrested and want organic food in jail. I mean, these are the people who think that they're superior to somebody. You know, nobody's superior to anybody. We all bleed, and also the human mind has the same tendencies toward projection, fallacy, bias, blind spots, rationalization. So we have to be very humble in our beliefs, because you can get yourself into a mind state where you divorce yourself from reality and don't know it. So of course, in a democracy, you want to disagree. I don't want everybody to be a liberal Democrat the way I am. I respect all the other worldviews, and I need them, because it's together that by arguing and debating, we can come up with the best answer. But if I can recognize that I'm fallible in my view and be humble in my debate, but you believe that you are 100% correct, the thing you read on Twitter is the gospel truth, is Moses wrote it because it's on Twitter, well, then we can't solve any problems together. And that's why I encourage, you know, people to take our faces away from these devices and talk to real people face to face, where we can actually look in each other's eyes and see the truth behind the truth, the pain, the fear on the other side, either way. And then empathy kicks in, compassion kicks in, wisdom kicks in. We have an awful lot of data, but very little wisdom. Dr. King, he didn't have all the data that we had, but he sure had the wisdom that we need.
You said it, Van. He was truly prophetic, and how his words ring as if they were penned just yesterday is phenomenal. The last one was militarism, and we know Dr. King was anti-war, but I'll fast forward a little bit, Van, because I do want to be mindful of time for us. Service is the rent we pay for the space we occupy. You alluded to your work with the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights. And shortly after graduating from Yale Law School, you founded the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, named after the shero, Ella Baker. As the National Executive Director and President for 12 years, you worked to shift resources away from prisons and punishment and towards building strong opportunities to safe and healthy communities. What are some of the learnings from your experience having founded the center to make sure that as a society and as a part of a larger ecosystem, we are opening up doors and building opportunities for all?
You know, it's 25 years ago this month that I helped to found the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights with my friend Diana Frappier and my other friend Mike McClune. And we were just kids, you know, just out of law school. Didn't know what we were doing, but we're just so frustrated with police brutality. And this is back in the 90s. Before a lot of people listening were born. We were fighting against police brutality. We were fighting to close abusive youth prisons. We were doing all these things. I tell these young people, I was woke before y'all had alarm clocks. So, you know, we've been doing this. It's nothing new. What's new is these phones that let you kind of see what we were hearing about. Now you can see it for yourself. And we have this beautiful movement, the Black Lives Matter movement. That's, you know, probably the biggest movement for social justice in the history of humanity. So we didn't have all that, but the issues were there, and we were using what we had to fight. And what we learned is ordinary people. Sometimes a case would come through our doors of a police brutality thing. We didn't have the video stuff at the time. We had to go by what was being said in the neighborhood. Sometimes the elected officials wouldn't touch the case. They were too worried about their reputation. Sometimes even the local preachers wouldn't touch the case. It wasn't their parishioner. But those grandmamas and those youth leaders and those, you know, local rappers and those sisters who were spoken word artists and those people who had their own relationship to the community, they would come out to the rally. They would come down to City Hall. They would show up at the press conference to support their family. And often we would win And then once we started to win, then here come those old politicians and the preachers and all those people. After we had made it safe, after ordinary people had raised so much hell, then they had to come and help. And I learned then, and I'll never forget it, the power of ordinary people speaking the truth, standing up for what's right in the community, making power do right. People say speak truth to power. No. Become powerful enough that power has to obey your truth. That's a different model. But I'm so proud of the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, still going today in Oakland, 25 years later, now under the great leadership of a young brother named Zachary Norris, who just had a book come out called Defund Fear. Man, 25 years later, we're still fighting these battles. Don't despair that we're still fighting them, because now we got the whole world on our side. And we're making real progress, but it ain't nothing new though. So respect us OGs.
Respect without question. It's tantamount to driving the Titanic, man. You can't turn, this movement, if you will, on a dime. Right. And there's been forefathers and foremothers at the helm who have been turning us in the right direction for decades now. And so for your leadership, on behalf of all of us listening in, thank you for that 25 years and counting going forward there. Van, I want to contemporize the language a little bit. I wanted to jump into, well, let me ask this question before I contemporize it. Because you alluded, we're in this unique space where corporations, I come out of the NAACP experience where, we had the audience of the corporate ear, but what was said in that meeting was very different than what was said from the corporate seat on anything public, let alone TV or public statements. Now we're in an environment where corporations are making robust statements, declarations, making resources available to the tune of billions of dollars for minority and women-owned business opportunities and investments into communities across this nation. Even universities are stepping up. Saginaw Valley is a great example. What do you attribute that to? You kind of alluded to it in your last statement there about the power that's existing there, but how do we get here? And do we revert back, or do you see this continuing to press forward?
Well, I mean, it was. I wish I could say we got here based on strategy, but we really got here based on tragedy. It was just the brutal lynching of George Floyd that finally, even the most cynical and dismissive white American or even just global citizen, seeing a 7-minute uninterrupted, unedited lynching, a murder of a man who was begging for his life, who was begging for his mother, who was urinating on himself. The community was standing around screaming, and the police did nothing about it. Not just the cop that killed him, but the other cop standing around. That made it inarguable that, I mean, if it was just one cop doing it by himself, but when you have the rest of the department not intervening, you realize there was something wrong there. So it wasn't strategy, it was tragedy that then brought people by their tens of millions out into the streets. What I would say to the young people who are listening is that the ball is now in our court, in that the protest can only get you so far to open up the doors, but somebody's got to be able to walk through and do the job. Somebody's got to be able to walk through and take the promotion. Somebody's got to be able to walk through and get the contract. Somebody's got to be able to walk through and come up with the invention, with the innovation, and prove that we weren't just out here screaming for nothing, that y'all was missing out by leaving out so much genius and so many different kinds and flavors of human beings being kept out the kitchen meant everybody was losing out. But now that we're here, look at how everything is so much better. And this is a mind shift to go from protest to productivity. Now, not to say that we aren't, naturally productive. We're very creative. All people are. But, sometimes we're so busy woke, being woke and calling them out and speaking this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going, blah, 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 and you missed your opportunity to just be the sermon. Sometimes you got to give the sermon, but sometimes you can just be the sermon. Look at my Black excellence. Look at my female excellence. Look at my fill in the blank genius. Whatever group you're from, once you kick in the door, you got to sit down and take your place at the table. And then once you have your place at the table, you have to deliver, which means even right now, you should be studying twice as hard.
Yeah.
Not just only studying how, our protest history and our advocacy history, but what do you know about artificial intelligence? What do you know about cryptocurrency? What do you know about CRISPR and genetic modification of life? What do you know about all the plans to go to Mars? In other words, I love Black history. Please know I love Black history. But a day like today, let's celebrate Black history, but also what is the Black future? Mm-hmm. I would, right now, I'd probably trade in 2 Black history months for 1 Black future weekend. You know what I mean? Like there's a future out there that we can help shape and define. And Dr. King was the first Afrofuturist. He saw a future that, the whole world is still catching up to. You can do that today, not just in politics and law, but in technology, in finance, and in fashion, and all these different things. And so I just encourage people to take this moment. It won't just, it'll either keep going or it'll fall apart, not based on how many more protests there are, but based on how many people can go through the doors that the protests are opening and prove our point.
Van Lovecraft Country has a great episode on Afrofuturism, so I'm gonna throw that out there for some homework for everybody listening in. It's out of space thinking, but just a little bit of homework there. Jumping into a little bit of contemporary, as you look at the civil rights movement of old, and you look at how young people again have taken to the streets, which mirrors what we've seen historically from civil rights movements. Tactics might be a little bit different. Certainly names and organizations are different. Through your lens, what has changed from the civil rights movement of the 60s to the 2000 movements we see across the nation today?
Well, I would say the nature of power has changed in that when I was born in 68. I was born the year they killed Dr. King, the year they killed Bobby Kennedy, the year, all that stuff, the year they tried to kill hope in America. So I'm kind of a bridge at this point in my 50s, I can still remember the 70s, and yet, I'm not in my 70s, so I can bridge. What I would say is simply this. There are 4 corners of power in the country. We always thought it was all the power was in Washington, D.C. Where did Thurgood Marshall go? He went to Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. Where did Ella Jo Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, Dr. King, Bayard Rustin go? They went to the March on Washington in Washington, D.C. Where did Barack and Michelle Obama go? They went to be president and live in the White House in Washington, D.C. We always have thought of power as being in Washington, D.C. But what I learned once I got to the Obama White House, where I was blessed to work, that there's 3 other sources of power. You're in D.C., that's the political power, that's the democracy. But then you can, very quickly get on an Amtrak train and shoot up to New York City, and you're on Wall Street, finance, big banks, big money. That's the plutocracy. You don't see that many African Americans and Latinos and other folks there. And you can hop on in New York, go to JFK, hop on a plane, fly over to California Bay Area, Silicon Valley, Google, Apple, Facebook. That's the technocracy. You don't see a lot of African Americans and Latinos and Native Americans there. All right, so that's another source of power that you have to deal with. And then you could hop on a plane very easily in San Jose or Oakland, San Francisco, and pop down to LA. Hollywood, media ownership. You see a lot of Black stars. You don't see a lot of Black folk owning the studios. So media ownership is another source of power, information, entertainment. So, and that's the mediaocracy, for lack of a better term. And so you have 4 corners of power: DC politics, Wall Street finance, Bay Area, Silicon Valley, and California technology, and then of course Los Angeles with entertainment and media. If you don't have people who can go into all the corners of power and perform and show genius and innovate and manage and grow and those type of things, then you're always going to be pulling up the rear. And so if you're a young person, You think, well, I want to make a difference for justice. Let me go to law school like Van Jones did, 25 years ago. Let me go protest. That's one way. But please understand, you might become an entrepreneur and create more jobs doing that and help more people doing that than all the protests that you can imagine. You have to be, we got to be a blues, jazz people where we can mix and mingle. You could run for office this year and start your online business the next year and do your capoeira this year, and the next year make a film. We don't want you just to be stuck in one box, because that's not how this world is working now. You can see so many different opportunities. Don't just stick with what was the way it was done before. Use what was done before as a springboard to take it to a completely different level.
Yeah, I like that, using where you are, and that leads me kind of into my next point. And I'll end on, you brought up Meek Mill and the Reform Alliance, but so using where we are, Kaepernick, Muhammad Ali, stark contrast, right? Stacey Abrams, Ella Baker, Jay-Z, Harry Belafonte. And this one might get you, Van, but Meek Mill, Emmett Till. How Meek was able to use, and how we were able to use Meek Mill to elevate the conversation around criminal justice, similar to how we were able to use the brutal killing of Emmett Till to move the agenda forward. Talk to me about how Reform Alliance was able to use the tragedy of Meek Mill. We certainly know about the prison industrial complex, but conversation about the supervision of millions more of individuals who are under supervision in this country. So just talk about the great work there in this final couple of minutes that we have here, and how we might be able to learn more about what Reform is doing and how we can engage.
Well, I encourage everybody to go to reformalliance.com and get more information. But I'm very proud to work with Meek Mill, the preeminent rapper of this new generation. Jay-Z, obviously the godfather of all of it, in terms of the people who are still doing it, still alive. Two things. One is that we focus on mass supervision. That's new for a lot of people. Everybody knows about mass incarceration, because America has 2 million people, 2 million human beings right now under lock and key in our jails and our prisons. It is a global catastrophe. That is 25% of all the people locked up anywhere on planet Earth. We're only 5% of the world's population. The US has 25% of the world's prisoners, disproportionately Black, brown, and poor. And it's unbelievable. But that's only 1/3 of the people under the control of the system. There's another 4 million on probation and parole and what we call community supervision, who are not truly free. Those are people who are, even if they don't ever commit a new crime, if they're late for a meeting with their probation officer, if they go to the wrong part of town to check on their sick aunt in an emergency, they could be back in prison tomorrow morning for a month or a year or the rest of their sentence. And this makes it impossible. People say, well, how come people come home from prison and keep going back? Well, how are you as a parent, and to stay out, to not violate your conditions of probation or parole? Often you've got to stay employed. So you got to be at work, can't be late. You might go to prison. You got to pick up your kid from daycare or for whatever, because that's child endangerment. You mess that up, you might go to prison. But you also have to be at your probation officer's appointment across town, and you don't have a car and you're low income, and you miss any of those three, you're back in prison. So this revolving door back into prison, you're not committing new crimes. You're trying to comply. You're not selling drugs. You're not stealing cars. You're doing everything they tell you to do. But there's so many catch-22s that a nun could not survive on probation and parole in America. And so Meek Mill wound up being sent back to prison because he was riding his motorcycle and did a wheelie. And they gave him 3 or 4 years back in prison. And so a bunch of celebrities and other people came out, got him free. And he said, we're going to go from Meek Mill to millions. And we built the Reform Alliance. And so we've passed laws now in California, Louisiana, Michigan, and I believe this year we'll do Pennsylvania, Iowa, and Georgia, and we'll have a federal bill, and we're going to fix that. So that 2 million mass incarceration number is being fed by a 4 million mass supervision number. As we squeeze down that mass supervision number, you're going to see that mass incarceration number shrink, because that's the revolving door. Everybody in the community knows once you're on paper, you're going back in no matter what you do. And so we're working on that. And I'm very proud to work with Meek Mill. Ahmaud Arbery might be another example of a true Emmett Till, somebody who was murdered, or George Floyd, or Breonna Taylor. So many, unfortunately, Emmett Tills that we have. But I tell you, I've never seen anybody like, it's to your point, I've never seen anybody like Meek Mill. I know a lot of celebrities that have gone to jail, and when they got out, all they did was pay their lawyer and keep it pushing. When he got out, he built a whole movement to make sure it didn't happen to anybody else. And he does not get enough credit for that.
Van, I think that's something we all can get behind. Thank you for your leadership, Van. I know being on the front lines comes at great sacrifice of self and family and time, but thank you for being on the front lines. In the words of Dr. King, if you can't fly, then run, and if you can't run, then walk, and if you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, keep on moving forward, Van. We appreciate you, brother. You're doing an excellent job.
Thank you too. Proud to know you too, brother. Keep it up.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's my pleasure now to turn it back over to Dr. Mamie Thorns. Dr. Thorns, thank you, and the Saginaw Valley State University family, and President Bashan for having me and allowing me this opportunity. I saw a couple of our team members, Laura Yaki and Mario Storms from TCF. Thanks for joining us. It's been an honor, and I hope you have me back, Dr. Thorns.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much. Wasn't that a great conversation? And if we all could just, put our hands together and just thank Mr. White and Van for that amazing, courageous conversation that we just witnessed. What a great way to end Dr. King's celebration by coming together. I remember Dr. King said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of convenience and comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." We are so delighted once again to have this opportunity to do our first virtual Martin Luther King celebration. And we've been working for months, and I have to tell you that it takes a team to work together to put on a program such as we have put on this evening. And I'd like to introduce to you the team. You will see their names on the screen. They are the ones that keep me grounded and keep me on task and make sure that we are providing quality programs for our region. And as Helen Keller said, alone, we can do little, but together we can do so much more. And that certainly was evidence of tonight, because it truly took a team together. Not only do we have a team that has worked very hard, but we also have sponsors. And every year they continue to support this great program. And I have to give a huge shout out, and you see their names on the screens, for all of our sponsors. And they just continue to support us. And I really do want to thank them very much for their ongoing support for our Dr. King program. And once again, thank you so much to our MLK scholarship recipients. Our young people are doing great things in this region, and we want you to know how proud we are. And we look forward to you continuing to keep the dream alive in our community. And even if you decide to go to a university or college outside of Michigan, we know that you will remember this night, and you will take what you have learned from Van this evening and apply it in your everyday life. And once again, a drum major. Wow, they are incredible individuals, and we just thank you and we appreciate all that you are doing and continue to do in our community. And we wanted to pay a special tribute to the late Francis Carter, who passed away 4 or 5 weeks ago at the age of 95. And the first African-American female principal. And we certainly thank her family and all of her friends and the AKA, for what all you have done to help keep her dream alive. You know, we are really, I was trying to get the count, and we have over 800 some people either on YouTube or on Zoom, and that is just amazing. So I want to thank all of you for registering for this event and also for participating this evening. You know, I always get questions from the audience. Okay, after Dr. King, what's next? What are you going to do for Black History Month? And so I've invited one of our outstanding criminal justice students, Cherokee Johnson, who's going to share with you about an upcoming event here at Saginaw Valley. Cherokee is the president of the Organization of Black Unity here at Saginaw Valley State University. So Cherokee, tell us about a special event that's coming up in February.
Hello and good evening. I hope everyone's doing well tonight, finding both joy and inspiration in this celebration of the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And thank you, Dr. Thorns, for welcoming me. I'd like to take this time to invite you all to join the SVSU community for a virtually moderated conversation on social justice and ongoing racism from activist, feminist, scholar, and writer, Dr. Angela Davis, on Thursday, February 18th at 5 p.m. Dr. Davis's activism and scholarship spans over many decades, as she has been deeply involved in movements for social justice around the world. A persistent theme of her work has been the generalized criminalization of those communities that are most affected by poverty and racial discrimination. She draws upon her own experiences as a person in the early 70s who spent 18 months on trial and in jail after being placed on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. We hope you can join us to hear more from Dr. Angela Davis on social justice and ongoing racism by signing up at svsu.edu/Angela Davis. We hope you join us.
Thank you, Cherokee. One last shout out that I would give, a special shout out to our event technology specialists. As I said, this was our first virtual event. And Julie, Eddie, and Andy, Cheryl, we thank you very much for your passion and your dedication and coming in over the weekend and staying late in the evening to help make sure that we had a very good program. And I just cannot thank you enough. So once again, thank all of you for joining us, and save the date for the 22 Great Lakes Bay Regional Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration, January the 19th, 2022. Have a good evening.